Hello, ladies and gentlemen. We are here and we are live, as always, on Wednesday night, and it's time to talk some NFL football. So, I have to talk about a week that went like exceptionally well. I think this was probably, I would call this my best week of the season so far, based off of the results that I had in week 7. So yeah, awesome coming in with some momentum, coming into a week where there are no teams on bye. So it's a full 16 game slate, and it's going to be super fun to sit down and chat with y'all about. Actually, you know what? Before I do this, this is not something I'm being paid for, but I have to shout it out because I'm enjoying it so much. I just started reading this book, Chasing the Boogeyman by Richard Chismar. And it's a horror title that is written as like an account of like a true crime event, like written as if it was true events that actually happened. It's really interesting, like horror and metafiction. It's written really well, and it's reminiscent of a Stephen King. And yeah, I just wanted to shout that out. I just started reading it, and I really enjoy it, and I sell books for a living. So, I thought I'd take a moment to shout out something that I've really enjoyed reading. I'm only a little bit into it, but I'm really enjoying it so far. So I thought I'd shout that out. Oh my goodness, Andrew Warren. Andrew Warren is here. I finally get to see the whole show for once this year. Andrew, awesome. I'm so happy to have you here, my friend. Boogeyman, is he doing that since he left WWE? Different Boogeyman. Different Boogeyman. All right. Might as well get started. In 5, 4, 3. What's happening, everybody? Justin, Bridgewater's Finest on YouTube, Blockbuster_guy on Twitter, and welcome to week number 8 of my weekly NFL football pick show for the 2024 NFL season and postseason. And as I was just saying to the folks who have tuned in live on the stream, we're coming off of probably my best week of the season up to this point. Picking the games straight up, picking the games against the spread, had myself a pretty darn excellent week. Oh my gosh, we got Gio in here too. Holy cow. So yeah, absolutely, I would say probably my best week of the season up to this point, going 12-3 straight up in week 7 and going 10-5 against the spread. 12-3 straight up, 10-5 against the spread. A little bit underwater on the totals, unfortunately, at 7 and 8. But you know what? I'm not gonna pick too many flaws out of what was an excellent week. Now 60-47 straight up, 60-44-3 against the spread, and 51-55-1 picking the total. So a couple games under 500 still on the totals, but man, an excellent week straight up and an excellent week against the spread. Definitely enjoying things. Taking a peek at the Bridgewater's Finest Pick'em pool for season 13, I guess, of this show. Still in 21st place out of 34 in that pool, 542 of 874 confidence points. It's 62%. And over the last 3 weeks, I've risen from 54.7 to 59 to 62 in terms of the percentage. So we're seeing that percentage climb up there, even if the placement in the pool is not moving, because I've been at 21st for, quite some time. Brought in 97 of 120 confidence points last week, which is awesome. It's just under 81%, so it was a strong week. Not strong enough, however, to win week 7. Shout out to our week 7 winner and the gentleman who remains the overall leader. It's still Tyler's picks. As I said last week, it's awfully difficult to catch the guy in first place if he's the one that's winning the week. Like, Tyler is off to an incredible start picking these games straight up. He brought in 111 of 120 confidence points last week, which is 92.5%, and has brought in 635 of 874 confidence points on the season, now well above that 70% championship pace at 72.7. So shout out to Tyler's Picks for continuing to have a basically untouchable season up to this point. We got a little blueberry juice with us again today. Taking a peek now into Fantasy Corner, which is, of course, brought to you by my friends at the Dynasty Trade Calculator. And ladies and gentlemen, there's never been a better time to get on board with Dynasty, Keeper, and long-term fantasy football. I took the leap a few years back. I've never looked back. I really enjoy, especially the elements of Dynasty fantasy football. My friends at the Dynasty Trade Calculator have got you covered for player evaluations, rankings, trade evaluations, a lot of podcasts with a lot of great experts on there. And that is one of the absolute best resources that's available to you online if you, like me, have taken the dive into long-term fantasy football. So my affiliate link is down below in the description, and for as little as a cup of coffee, you can gain access to one of the absolute best Dynasty Keeper and long-term fantasy football assets available to you online. So another week of going 7-1 across my 8 fantasy football teams, and over the last 3 weeks, your boy is on a 20-4 heater in fantasy football. And that includes going a perfect 6-0 in my 2 dynasty leagues. 3 straight wins in both of those leagues. In fact, now 4 straight wins in the Professionals Dynasty, where in week 7 I picked up the win over Tony to move my record to 5-2. Picked up my 3rd straight win in Ante and Co, beating Evan. It came down to Monday night. He just couldn't quite hold on to the win there. And that was my 3rd straight win in that league. That's brought me up to 3-4. Once again, I'm trying to defend a championship in that league. I have week 8 matchups against Half Moon's Picks, who is in the chat right now, Steven, as well as our picks leader, our overall picks leader, Tensa. Those are my matchups in the 2 dynasty leagues this week. So I'm really looking forward to both of those matchups. Right now, they're both projected wins, but I mean, it's only Wednesday. A lot can happen between Wednesday and Sunday, so I'm looking forward to those big time. And I'll take this opportunity, as I always do, to remind you that if you go to the description of this live stream, of the VOD, of the podcast episode, however you get this show and interact with this show, you are going to find all of my results from last week, all of my straight up against the spread and over-under plays for week 8 in the NFL. You are going to find information on joining the Bridgewater's Finest Pick'em Pool for season 13 of this show. You're also going to find information on joining the NFL YouTube Prognosticators Facebook page, where we talk about football all week long. A ton of great prognosticators and pick makers who are on that page giving you their picks every single week. No better place to be than the NFL YouTube Prognosticators page. So we've actually got a lot of moving parts coming into this week. We've got injuries. We've got quarterback changes, mostly based off of injuries. We've got a wide receiver trade to talk about a little bit later in the week. I am endeavoring to get this show done in about an hour. That's what I'm shooting for. We got a full 16-game slate. I think we can do it. Before we get started, I do want to get caught up with some stuff here that's in the chat. Andrew said he's joking. He may check that book out. That's in my alley. Can you post on the comments or chats? Yes, absolutely. Let me do that right now. I am just going to type that in the chat. It was a book that I was talking about early on, just before this stream started, which was Chasing the Boogeyman. And it's Richard Chismar. I keep wanting to call him Stephen because I keep thinking it's Stephen King, but in the chat right now is the name of the book that I just started reading, Chasing the Boogeyman, Richard Chismar. I'm really enjoying it. It's early on in it, horror novel. I sell books for a living, and if you like horror, I think you might like it. Like if you're a Stephen King fan, I think you'll like this book. Let's see. Geo, must be Wednesday. Must be Wednesday, my friend. Good to see you. Garbage time touchdown by Buffalo saved my ass last week. Well done. Broken ankles in the chat. You're killing it. Broken ankle. The reason I'm going to be getting a lot more Tim Hortons Tim Rewards points in the future. He is killing it when it comes to the NHL Challenge in the Tim Hortons app. Half Moon's Picks is in the chat, like we said. Andrew, blueberry juice. You're not going to turn into a blueberry like Violet Beauregard. I hope not, but I mean, blueberries and Nova Scotians kind of go hand in hand. So if it does, it's at least not totally out of character. Andrew saying he's a Stephen King fan. Fantastic. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let us waste no more time. We will get started here with Thursday night football. The Minnesota Vikings on the road in Los Angeles taking on the Rams. Now, these are two teams going in opposite directions from last week. The Rams picked up the win, avenging a loss, I think, in their previous game. The Vikings losing their game last week, and that was a game that I did, I believe I took Detroit to win that game. I did. So it was an upset that I took with them last week. It wound up working out. The Rams, I did have the Rams beating the Raiders, and actually that game went pretty well, exactly the way that I thought it would, because the Rams were heavier favorites last week than I felt that they should have been, and I don't think they covered against the spread. I think it was like a 20-15 final or something like that. So despite the loss last week, the Vikings are a team that my model still really, really likes. The offense has been clicking along really, really well. They're scoring points. They're hyper efficient. The defense is still a very good scoring defense. And despite the win last week, my model didn't really change its opinion all that much on the Rams, or at the very least, didn't change the opinion on the Rams enough for me to look at a game like this and go like, oh yeah, they're ready to compete with a team like Minnesota. So Geo does make an excellent point in the chat that no team has won a game following their game against Detroit all year. So, I mean, Detroit might be doing a little something special. They're beating teams up and softening them up for their next opponents. But this is a great get back spot here, I think, for the Vikings. Again, my model likes them a lot. So let's go ahead and take the Minnesota Vikings here on the road in Los Angeles to beat the Rams. It's worth pointing out, I have been absolute dog water on Thursday night football this season. I think I'm like 2-5 or like 1-6. Like I've been terrible on Thursday night football. So take this pick with a grain of salt, but I like the Vikings to get the win. On the line, the Rams are taking +3 here as a, moderate home dog. The Vikings have 5 covers against the spread so far this season. I like them to win. It's right on the edge of my small price to pay. So let's lay the -3 here on Minnesota. Total in the game set at 48. I think I'm going to stick with an under here. The Vikings have only hit 2 overs all season long. So let's go ahead and lean on that really good Vikings defense and take an under here. Under 48 points in Minnesota, Los Angeles. We're going to go Vikings 27, Rams 17. So Vikes win, Vikes cover. Give me the under on the points. All right, I feel like we're on a good pace here. Let's keep the momentum. So we're going to do 4 games here, and then we're going to talk about the Packers game, jumping a little bit ahead. But we're going to start in Cincinnati, where the Bengals are going to play host to the Philadelphia Eagles. Both of these teams coming in winners of back-to-back football games. The Eagles are coming in on the tail end of back-to-back road games. So look, back-to-back wins, back-to-back road games for the Eagles. Even though Philly's won 2 straight games, I'm still not a massive I'm not really a massive fan of I'm not a massive fan, and my model's not a massive fan of what the Eagles have done lately. What I will say is I do feel like their defense has kind of turned a corner here. They're top 5 over the last 4 weeks in terms of total defense and scoring defense. So some of that is reflective of opponent, but the defense has been getting the job done. I still want to see more from the offensive side of the ball, but as they get healthier, I think you'll start to see that kind of come around. An update on a previous item from last week, Jordan Mailata, who I had mentioned last week, was injured, was kind of expecting him to miss a couple of weeks. He landed on IR with his hamstring injury, so that's going to cost him. It was just prior to last week's game that they put him on IR. So he'll miss another 3 games at minimum. And look, that's one of the elite left tackles in football. So the pass blocking could very well be suspect against a Bengals team that does like to send a lot of pressure and does like to put a lot on the quarterback. The Bengals have basically completely turned the corner from where they were earlier this season. They really struggled, obviously, in the early parts of the season. Over the last 4 weeks, they're one of the 5 most efficient offenses in football. They're one of the 10 most efficient defenses in football. They've definitely turned a corner here. They are marginal favorites here at -2.5, but I think I'm going to take the Eagles here. There's something. I look at this and I feel like these two teams are pretty darn similar. And if I was given the choice, I'm going to lean on the fact that that Eagles defense is playing exceptional football right now. I think I'm going to lean on the better defense here and take the upset. I'm going to take the Eagles on the road in Cincinnati to get the win over the Bengals. Now, on the line, obviously, Cincinnati laying -2.5 here as a marginal home favorite. I like Philly to win. Give me the +2.5 on the Eagles. Total in the game set at 48 points, kind of the same as the last one. Philly has only hit 2 overs so far this season. I'm going to take another under here, under 48 points in Philly, Cincinnati. Let's go Eagles 24, Bengals 21. Eagles win. Eagles cover the +2.5 and give me an under on the 48-point total. Again, my model doesn't love the Eagles all that much, but I like Philly to win this game. Gio with a great point. Bungles are 0-3 at home this year. Let's go to Cleveland now, where the Browns are going to play host to a division matchup of the AFC North against the Baltimore Ravens. Baltimore comes into this game winners of 5 straight. Cleveland losers of 5 straight. So clearly 2 teams going in exact opposite directions. Cleveland is all but a hard no. Like all but a hard fade for me at this point. Whereas Baltimore, even though they're coming into this game on the tail end of back-to-back road games and on the short week, having played on Monday night, I still feel exceptionally good about where this Ravens team is on the offensive side. An undeniable 4-game stretch here for the Ravens, where they're averaging over 480 yards a game and over 36 points a game. Now, it's worth mentioning, and Gio just kind of put it in the chat, one of the big stories here for the Browns, Deshaun Watson has now a season-ending injury, ruptured his Achilles last week, and Jameis Winston is going to be stepping in as the starting quarterback for the Browns this week. I actually think that probably marginally upsells their offense, because, I mean, we know what Deshaun is this season, and essentially what Deshaun is this season is almost nothing. So, I mean, it feels like almost anybody that's like a replacement level quarterback is going to be a slight uptick for them on the offensive side. They don't have Amari Cooper anymore. I think Cedric Tillman was like the big beneficiary of all those extra targets. You thought they were going to go to Jerry Jeudy. They didn't, at least last week. It seems like Cedric Tillman is the guy there, along with, of course, David Njoku. Yeah, it's again, even though there's stuff going against Baltimore, there's way too many question marks with the Cleveland Browns on the offensive side, the defensive side, either way, basically just hard fading them at this point. So give me the Baltimore Ravens on the road in Cleveland to beat the Browns. Now, on the line, this is our first of a few really big spreads this week. And I've been living all season long on basically hashtag take the points. Like, I've been taking the points all over the place, and it's led to a lot of success so far this season. But what I can say is, for the most part, the big spreads this week feel justified. And this is one that feels justified. Cleveland is taking +9 here as a home dog. And I know the conventional wisdom is, in a division game, probably don't lay that many points. But again, the big spreads feel justified. They really feel justified this week for the most part. We'll talk about the ones that don't, but for the most part, they do. I'm going to lay that -9 on Baltimore. if Cleveland's defense was playing in the way that you kind of expect Cleveland's defense to play, or the perception of them as being like a high level defense, I probably wouldn't, but they're not. And the Ravens offense is on fire right now. So -9, it feels doable to me. So we're going to lay the -9. Worth noting, Baltimore's covered 4 spreads this year, and I think might have a push in there somewhere too. So it's a high percentage. Total in the game set at 44.5 points. I'm going to go ahead and take an over here. Baltimore's got 6 overs on the season. Cleveland only has 2, but again, I feel like this is an offensive uptick for the Browns, making the change at quarterback, the necessary change, obviously. Give me an over on the 44.5 point total. I'm going to go with like a 34-17. I think Baltimore doubles them up. So Ravens win, Ravens cover the -9, and give me an over on the 44.5 point total. Up next is going to be another quick one. The Tennessee Titans on the road in Detroit, taking on a Lions team that is a winner of 4 straight games. Tennessee losers of back-to-back games, again, on the tail end of back-to-back road games, and who just traded, I think, maybe their best defensive player total, certainly their best linebacker, Ernest Jones. Is Ernest Jones? I think it was. They traded him to Seattle for a linebacker and a 4th round pick. So it's starting to feel like maybe the D build is starting to begin here in Tennessee, starting to feel more and more like a lost season. So again, not feeling super confident about the Titans here on either side of the football, really, even though they are like a top 10 total defense. The problem with that being they're still giving up way too many points for the little amount of yardage that they allow. And the offense is doing basically nothing. So this is another one where, look, Detroit's, I think, firing on all cylinders here. I'm more than happy to take the Detroit Lions to get the win here at home. Another massive spread here, massive spreads in back-to-back games. Detroit laying -11 in this game against Tennessee. And I'm going to go ahead and lay those points too. I mean, Detroit's covered 5 spreads this year. It's a high octane offense. I don't think the injury to David Montgomery is anything significant. So I'm not really worried about that too much. And Jahmyr Gibbs had a great game playing, the majority of the offensive reps after David Montgomery kind of had his issues. But yeah, I'm going to lay the -11 here on Detroit. I think they run away with this thing. Total in the game set at 45 points. I'm feeling an over in this. I think we probably sniff 50 in this game. So give me over 45 points, in Tennessee, Detroit. Give me like a 36-14 final, something like that. So Detroit wins, Detroit covers the -11, and give me an over on the 45 points. And the last game we're going to look at before we talk about Green Bay and Jacksonville is the Arizona Cardinals in Miami taking on the Dolphins. Now, this is a matchup of 2 teams that are 2 teams that my model does not like. Arizona basically peed away all the goodwill they had with me from the early part of the season. Not playing very well on both sides of the ball. It was good enough to get the win last week, but that's also, part of the opposition that they had, which we'll talk about when we talk about the Chargers game. Arizona coming in, obviously, with the short week, having just played on Monday night. Miami lost last week, but should be getting Tua Tagovailoa back, which is obviously the big story out of Miami. I just want to say this very quickly, and then it's going to be the last that I'll say on the topic. I talked about it on Twitter a little bit earlier. Tua was asked in a press conference whether he'd be wearing a Guardian cap when he came back, and immediately said no. And when asked why, he said personal choice. And I'm not of the opinion that he should have to wear a Guardian cap. Like, I'm not in the business of making those decisions for other people. So I'm not saying that he should 100% be wearing a Guardian cap. I just felt like that was an immature answer to that question. Like, I think if you're somebody that has had 4 documented concussions, probably more than that, but 4 documented, you have to understand where that question is coming from. And I think it's your duty in that moment to at least give a thoughtful response, even if the response is BS. I would rather have thoughtful BS in that moment than him sounding as defensive as he did about the mere question of being asked whether he'd be wearing a Guardian cap. If you're not going to wear one, that's fine. Again, I'm not going to make that decision for anybody else. But it was frustrating to me just to see how quickly he just dismissed the entire idea. And it's like, well, the reason you're being asked that is we've seen you multiple times now having to be peeled off the turf like a flapjack after obviously suffering a significant concussion. So that's where that question comes from, obviously. And I thought it just deserved a more thoughtful answer than he gave. Again, it's totally his choice. It is his choice. But to drape yourself in, well, I'm not going to do it because I don't want to, it's just not a very mature answer to that question. That's all I'm saying. I just didn't think it was a mature answer to the question. That's it. I'm interested to see what he looks like. He's, I think, obviously going to have some rust to him, and I hope he's ready to come back. Again, I'm obviously not smart enough to make those decisions, but I hope he's ready to come back. I hope he looks like Tua. I very much do, and I hope we never have to see him get injured like that again. I'm going to take the Cardinals in this one. They're a home or a road dog here, but while I think it isn't a step up for the Dolphins on the offensive side, how could it not be? I need to see what Tua looks like first, and I'm willing to give him this 1 week to kind of get back in the swing of things. I'm going to take the Cards here in the upset. So I'm going to take Arizona on the road, despite the short week in Miami, to beat the Dolphins. On the line, Miami's laying -3.5, and given the results on both sides of the ball over the last month, that's just not justified to me at all. So give me the +3.5 because I like the Cards to win the game outright. Total in the game set at 45.5 points, despite the fact that Miami has only hit 1 over to this point in the season. I'm going to take an over here because I get the feeling with Tua back in the lineup, we could be in for a game that gets into the 50s. So over 45.5 points in Arizona, Miami. We're going to take Cards 27, Dolphins 24. Cards win, Cards cover against the spread, over on the points. So let's take a couple of minutes here and just get caught up here in chat. Let's see. Geo with some college picks. Jacksonville State -20.5 over Middle Tennessee and over the 63.5 point total. Half Moon saying Dallas and Minnesota should lose. Geo says that was a Freudian slip because originally he said Detroit. Andrew, I just ordered Chasing the Boogeyman at my local Barnes and Noble. That's awesome, man. That's great. Thank you so much. Geo, Brown's scrub quarterback starting. Team usually rallies the first week for the scrub. There was an incident earlier this season where you kind of thought that was going to be what was going to happen. I can't remember what game it was. It didn't wind up going that way. So I'm not too worried about something like that. It could very well happen, but I'm not overly concerned with it. Geo did point out Watson was having a good game before he got hurt last week. That's true. Geo, big spreads covered last week. Fingers crossed that holds true this week. I don't care about double digits as well. Home division dogs have struggled the past 2 weeks. This game looks like a complete setup by Vegas. Andrew, we need Keith Bailey to help you out since he's the biggest Titans fan in the group. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Keith, get in here. Help me with that trade. Geo, the Titans 1-5 against the spread. Absolutely. Tennessee's getting a new stadium done, I think, next year or the following season. Oh, I hadn't heard that. Oh, that's good. That's good to hear. It's a nice investment for them in the community. Geo, lay the points. Tigers are down and out in the postseason. They are. It's true. Half Moon, Titans, 0 chance. I agree. Chargers got the 702 call last week against the Cardinals, says Geo. Andrew says, I don't know if it's time for Tua yet. That's another one like where it's like you hope that he's ready. You hope that he's ready to go, and I hope he looks great. Quite the large glass of vino you're drinking, JR. Nah, it's just blueberry juice. Just blueberry juice. And Andrew, it's his choice. I'm not going to judge him for that. Absolutely. Same thing. I feel the same way. All right, the Green Bay Packers in Jacksonville taking on the Jags. The Packers winners of 3 straight games coming into this one. The Jags picking up the win in London last week. That was a game I think I took them to lose. Yeah, actually, I took the Patriots to beat them. That certainly didn't work out. So Jacksonville beat a team that, to be fair, if I take my anti-Jacksonville bias out of things, they probably should have beat. So good for them. They did their job, essentially. Jacksonville is still not a team that my model is overly in love with. I think this defense has a lot of problems. Meanwhile, over on Green Bay's side, they're moving the ball very well still top 10, scoring points at a top 10 pace. Their defense is about middle of the pack, or like, somewhere in that meaty part of the curve. It's worth pointing out Green Bay's defense is about a yard below the league average in terms of defensive efficiency. So that might kind of push our score up here a little bit, but it's also a fairly high total at 49.5. I like the Packers in this spot. Jacksonville doesn't strike me as a team that's looking likely to win back-to-back games, and who knows, they may not even be trying to. That's that anti-Jacksonville bias coming out again. Of course they're trying to win, but anyway, I quite enjoy the prospects of Jordan Love facing this defense, because again, I don't think the Jags defense is anything special. So give me the Packers on the road in Jacksonville to get the win over the Jags. On the line, the Jags are taking +4 here as a home dog. I like the Packers to win. I'm going to go ahead and lay that -4. I think this is probably a 2-possession game. So -4, I got no problem with that at all. Total in the game set at 49.5 points. I am going to take an over here. Again, I think Green Bay probably gets into the 30s in this game, which means Jacksonville's only got to get to the 20s. I think that's doable. Give me like a 31-21 final here for Green Bay. So Packers win, Packers cover the -4, and give me an over on the 49.5 point total. All right. Battle of the AFC East now, as the New York Jets, losers of 4 consecutive games, travel to New England, losers of 6 consecutive games, in the Somebody's Gotta Win Bowl. Somebody's got to win. Somebody's got to try. Somebody's got to try, and somebody's got to win. The Jets are coming in on the tail end of back-to-back road games here. Obviously, like I said, losers of 4 straight games. Patriots, losers of 6 straight games. Neither one of these teams looks particularly good, but between the two of them, the team that seems like they look better is the Jets. We'll put it that way. The addition of Davante Adams will make that offense better. I kind of knew it was going to take that week, where it was just like, they tried to feature Davante a lot, but I think he only caught 3 balls for 30 yards on 9 targets. As a Garrett Wilson dynasty manager, I'm not worried about what the split's going to look like anymore, because it was like, I think 27 of Rodgers' 39 targets went to either Wilson, Davante, or Breece Hall. Breece Hall was like the only Jet that had a really good game last week. So I'm not concerned about that anymore. And it will make this Jets offense better to have a guy like Davante Adams in the wide receiver room. It's just going to take a little bit of time. That could start this week, because Lord knows the Patriots on the defensive side are very gettable, especially in the secondary. I would expect this to be a very good offensive game for the Jets and for Aaron Rodgers. So let's take the Jets on the road in New England to get the win over the Patriots. But here's what I'm not going to do. I'm not going to lay 7 points. And I'll tell you why. Earlier in this show, when I laid -9 on sorry, on uh Baltimore. Excuse me. Um -9 is justified with the way the Ravens have been playing. -7 on the Jets is not justified. Yeah, their defense has been all right. It's been pretty good. But the offense has not looked good. And -7 on the road in a division game in this context, there's too much that can go wrong there. So even though the Patriots have only covered one line this season, give me the +7 on New England at home. Total in the game here is 41 points. Very beatable total. Again, I like the Jets to have a better game offensively. So give me over on the 41 points. And I'm going to go like a 26-20. The backdoor cover of +7 is so alive in this game, it's not even funny. Like, it would not surprise me whatsoever if this game was 26-13 in the 2-minute warning and the Patriots score a touchdown in the final 2 minutes and backdoor cover the 7 points. That would not surprise me in the least. It's so alive in this game, it's not even funny. So give me the +7 on the Patriots and give me the over 26-20 final. I do like the Jets to win outright because, good Lord, somebody has to. Coming up next is a game that looked a lot better on paper before Monday Night Football, and that was the Atlanta Falcons on the road in Tampa to take on the Bucks. The Bucks on the tail end of the short week because they did play on Monday, and on Monday their receiver room got absolutely decimated. Mike Evans re-aggravating his hamstring injury. He's likely going to be out. What they're talking about now is he's likely going to be out until like week 12. So, I mean, an IR stint is not impossible here. I don't think we'll see that because I think that might only be 3 games in the bye or something like that. I'm not sure. Um, yeah. So they put him back out there dealing with a hamstring injury. He re aggravates it, unfortunately. That's going to cost him close to a month. And then, of course, Chris Godwin. He dislocates his ankle. There's probably more damage in there. He had surgery. He's done for the season. And all of a sudden, your top 2 like elite receivers are both gone in the span of the same game. And the entire context of your team and your season is completely changed. So, given the fact that they're on a short week, both teams coming in off of losses, and neither team now does my model particularly know what to do with. Like, Tampa's offense has looked great, but now they don't have their 2 biggest weapons. So, what is that offense going to look like moving forward? Atlanta's offense has looked great. Their defenses look terrible. And ditto with Tampa, their defenses look terrible as well. Got to go with the Falcons here because they're at least the healthiest of the 2 teams, and I'm confident that they can put some points on the board. So let's take Atlanta on the road in Tampa to beat the Bucks. On the line, Tampa's taking +2.5 here as a home dog. I like Atlanta to win. It's a small price to pay. Let's lay the -2.5. Total in the game set at 46. So Tampa's got 5 overs this year, but again, they just lost their top 2 receivers. So what can you kind of look like? Or what can you kind of look at in that sense? I do still think this game gets into the 50s. I think this becomes like a sloppy knockdown drag out division matchup with Tampa, by God, doing their absolute best to try to keep pace in this game. So I think it stays an entertaining game because of that. Give me an over on the 46-point total, and I'm going to go like a 30-23, something like that. So Falcons win. Falcons cover the -2.5. Give me an over on the point total. Entertaining game, but still feels like it could have been more than what it will ultimately be because of those injuries. However, probably does mean hashtag Cade Otton season. I'm sad. I'm almost done my blueberry juice. Another division matchup, this one taking place in Houston. The Texans are playing host to the Indianapolis Colts. Houston coming off of a loss last week against Green Bay. Green Bay walking it off with a last second field goal from Brandon McManus. It's nice to have a kicker that can make some kicks. Indianapolis, despite the fact that I still feel like this team is kind of middling, winners of 2 straight games, and they keep getting it done, man. They've covered 6 times against the spread this year. They feel like the 2024 version of the 2023 or 2022 New York Giants, like a team that didn't really look all that great, but just kept covering against the spread. And that's kind of how I feel about Indianapolis. Anthony Richardson's back. I didn't think he looked particularly good. That's very much still a project there for the Colts at the quarterback position. I do feel like Houston has turned a bit of a corner. Their defense has been playing actually quite well lately. Their offense is putting points on the board, top 10 in terms of offensive efficiency. So let's go ahead and grab the Texans here in this division matchup. I think they're the better team. They're at home. Give me that, and give me the Houston Texans. Now, what I will say is Houston is laying -5 in this game. I'm going to hedge my bets here because I do think the Colts could possibly win this game outright. And 5 points just seems like a lot to lay to me in a division matchup with 2 teams that are at least relatively similar and have been kind of relatively similar over the last little while leading into this game. So 5 points just seems heavy to me. So I'm going to take the Texans to win, but give me the +5 on the Colts, who have found a lot of success against the spread this season. Total in the game, I'm actually going to go under on the 46-point total. Houston's only hit 2 overs all season. Like I said, their offense playing fairly well right now. So let's take an under here, under 46 points in Houston, Indianapolis. Let's go 23-20 in favor of the Texans. Could be a backdoor cover. Maybe the Texans have to walk it off at the end of the game. 23-20, Houston wins. Give me the Colts +5 and an under on the points. And the last game we're going to look at before we skip ahead to Sunday Night Football is going to be the Dallas Cowboys, or no, sorry, that is Sunday Night Football. The New Orleans Saints on the road in Los Angeles to take on the Chargers. Sorry about that. So this is a battle of 2 teams who, Chargers lost last week. Saints have lost 5 straight. Worth noting that the Saints did just extend Alvin Kamara for 2 more years, which is, I think, kind of puts him in position to retire as a Saint, which some Saints fans are upset about from a money perspective, but it's a nice story, man. I don't think you can be too mad at that. Saints, like I say, losers of 5 straight games. Chargers losing last week. That obviously well-publicized game against Arizona. Chargers coming in on a short week. The Saints, basically the only thing that I think is going in the Saints' direction in this game is the fact that they're coming in off the long week. So they had some extra time. They had, 10 days to get ready for this game. From New Orleans side as well, kind of updating an item from last week. Rashid Shaheed was placed on IR for his knee injury. Unfortunately, his season is done. So that is definitely a hit to them on the offensive side. I assume Chris Olave is healthy, but that always just constantly seems to be a question mark. So here's the deal. Everyone, my model included, says that the Chargers are going to win a low-scoring game. Saints defense is not very good, has actually been atrocious lately. Their offense is middling. Chargers offense has been terrible, but the Chargers defensive unit has been pretty good, which is how I felt coming into their game last week. And then I watched the Arizona Cardinals march down the field and win a game they should have been blown out in. And I sat there and I said to myself, this is my favorite Chargers choke job of all time. Because it's the one where they give you the faintest glimmer of hope, before they drop a steamer right in your mouth. That's got to be life as a Chargers fan. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to punish the Chargers for the fact that they put me through that on Monday night. Give me the Saints outright. And part of this too is I look at a spread that has a short week Chargers team laying 7.5 points after losing to Arizona last week. And as soon as I saw that line, I said, well, there's no way in hell I'm taking that. And now I'm like, why am I even going to take them to win this game? They need to prove to me now at this point that they are worth picking. And so I'm not, until they do that, I'm not going to. So not only am I taking the plus 7.5 on the Saints, give me New Orleans to win the game outright. Why? Why not? So Saints break their 5-game losing streak. New Orleans goes into LA and beats the Chargers. So obviously, give me the Saints plus the 7.5 points. Total in the game set at 40.5. At the very least, the Saints have hit 5 overs this season. So give me the over on the 40.5 points. Give me like a 23-21 final. Give me another heartbreak. Give me another Saints walk it off at the end of the game. Just give it to me. Just give it to me because we all know it's coming. So 23-21 final. Saints win. Saints cover. And over on the point total. That's it. Blueberry juice is gone. All right, let's get caught up in the chat here. Geo, real flat spot for the Fudgios. That's his loving nickname for the Packers. Detroit on deck. Jags actually played well last week. Could surprise. A blind squirrel finds a nut every now and then in terms of the Jags playing well. Jacksonville blew their chance of the number 1 pick, and my Patriots hold their own. If they want to get the number 1 pick, they get Travis Hunter. Geo says can't take a corner with the first overall pick. I would probably tend to agree with that. Both the Jets and the Pats defenses have really struggled the last couple of weeks. Don't know what happened. Take the over. I would have never guessed the Packers pick. Moon, I've picked against the Packers a couple times this year. I don't know what you want from me. If I think they're going to win, I'm going to take them. I don't know what you want. Andrew, I like what Drake May's doing. Our O-line's the worst in the league and our defense is the bottom 5. Yeah, fair enough. May has actually made some plays that be like, oh, like this kid's got something. I like this. Andrew, I would lay the Jets -7. Our defense is that bad. Can't do it. Aaron Rodgers has been an interception machine this year. Yeah, uncharacteristically. Like, it's been a lot. It's just, like, not what you're used to seeing from him at all. My Patriots are the San Jose Sharks of the NFL. Ooh. Oh, as a hockey fan, that just, oh, God, that hurts. Baker has accounted for almost every Bucs touchdown so far this year. He's thrown a ton, and he's even ran for a couple. Yeah, he's been kind of a one-man wrecking crew. It'll be interesting to see what he does now without his 2 best receiving options. Houston and Indy could be a rivalry on the rise in the next 5 years. I agree, absolutely. Corey's back for another week. Thank you, man. Good to see you. Call the loss to the Pack. I see a close-ish bounce-back win for the Texans by touchdown or 10 points. Stroud kneeling at the end. Fair enough. I do definitely have Houston winning. I don't like that -5. I just, not a fan. Colts 6-1, but only plus 1.4 spread differential. Very true. They keep covering by 0.5 point. Yeah, but they keep doing it. That's what matters. Saints in terrible cap trouble. Yeah, that's been like a multi-year thing for New Orleans. Saints and Chargers with bad offenses, defensive game. Yeah, but only the Chargers have like played like even any adequate defense over the last like month. Chargers fumbled at the 4-yard line last week. Yeah, that's rough. Oh boy. Philip used to drop those steamers into our mouths for 15 years. It's true. It's a tradition like no other in the NFL. Jim Harbaugh, not an NFL coach. Interesting. Believe me, Chargers got the 702 call. Bring on the heartbreak Def Leppard for Los Angeles. I like it. All right, here's how we're going to close the show. Sunday Night Football. We got 4 more games in the late window, I believe. And then Monday Night Football, Giants and Steelers. But let's look at that Sunday Night Football game first. The Dallas Cowboys on the road in San Francisco to take on the Niners. The Niners are a team that has moved the ball very, very well over the last month. They're over 400 yards a game in their last 4 games. They're scoring points. The defense has been not too bad. I mean, it's honestly, it's been pretty good. From an efficiency perspective, a bit below average, but that's only from an efficiency perspective, right? The total bulk numbers do definitely matter. And they're not the dominant Niners defense that we've tended to see over the last few years, but they're certainly getting the job done. And like I say, moving the ball fairly well. Now, worth pointing out for the Niners, Brandon Ayuk. He's moved on to IR, knee injury. I think it's ACL and MCL. His season is over. At the beginning of his next season is even in question at this point, unfortunately. And Deebo Samuel having to get hospitalized a night or two ago for pneumonia. And based on the fact that it required a hospitalization, I'm going to think there's a pretty solid chance that he does not play this week. So what does that leave Ricky Pearsall as the Niners' number 1 receiver? Because I think, is it Jawan Jennings, I think, is dealing with something as well. So, like, again, is Ricky Pearsall, and Kittle, of course, but is Ricky Pearsall like the number 1 receiver for the Niners coming into the game this week? It's worth asking. The Cowboys are coming into this game off a loss last week, as are the Niners. Or not a loss last week for the Cowboys, lost 2 weeks ago, because they are coming into this game off of their bye. So they will at least be well rested, ideally refreshed. I think their offense has been showing some spark. The defense has very much not. They should be bottom 10 in efficiency. They barely miss it. They're bottom 10 in scoring defense over the last month. They've been giving up a lot, and the offense has not looked the same. That said, they have a softening schedule towards the end of the year. Actually, I think in terms of like in fantasy, in terms of I think quarterback matchup and wide receiver matchup, they're like some of the softest in the league, but that's like for the fantasy playoffs for, week 14, 15, 16, like kind of down the road, right? So that definitely is not a reflection of this week. But in a game where I don't think really either one of these teams have been super impressive over the last little while, I think you are kind of incentivized, even though there's a lot of history here on one side, to grab the upset. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm actually going to take the Dallas Cowboys here in San Francisco to get the win over the Niners. Again, I don't think the Niners necessarily deserve to be as big a favorite as they are in this game, especially with a team coming off a bye. I'm going to take the Cowboys to get the upset here. So Dallas goes into San Francisco, gets a little bit of revenge, and beats the Niners. Like I said, on the line, Niners are laying -4. And obviously, I like Dallas to win, so give me the +4 points on the Cowboys. Total in the game set at 46.5 points. The Cowboys have hit 4 overs this season. And that's with, I think, either a game. No, it's because they've already had a bye. So they've got 4 overs and they were off for a week. So I think 4 in 6 games. I think I'm going to grab the over here. I like a higher scoring game. I think this gets to the 50s. Could be a walk-off here for Dallas as well. They obviously have a good kicker. Cowboys win the game 26-24. Dallas wins. Dallas covers. Give me the over on the points. The Buffalo Bills are on the road in Seattle taking on the Seahawks. Buffalo winners of 2 straight games. Seattle picking up a win last week. But the Seahawks team on the defensive side, it feels like their defense has kind of caved in here over the last month or so. Could obviously as well explain the trade that took place earlier today with Tennessee, where they bring over again, I think it's Ernest Jones. at the linebacker position, trying to shore up that defense a little bit. It's been awfully leaky over the last month, giving up nearly 420 yards a game and over 30 points. The offense moves the ball fairly well, but they're also going to be dealing likely with the absence of DK Metcalf. He injured his knee last week, and it's a minor sprain, but I would lean on him not playing in this game. And I haven't been super impressed with Jackson Smith and Jigba lately either. Ken Walker is playing great for Seattle, but I think Buffalo's defense, which has been pretty bend but don't break lately, I think they'll be able to handle it. And I like the prospects of their offense now with Amari Cooper. So let's go ahead and grab Buffalo on the road in Seattle to get the win over the Seahawks. Seattle's taking +3 here as a home dog. They've only covered 2 spreads this season, so give me the -3 here on Buffalo. Total in the game set at 47 points, and even though Seattle has hit 5 overs this season, I don't like the ceiling and the prospects of them on the offensive side this week. Give me an under. Give me a sneaky under here in Buffalo, Seattle. I'm going to go 27-17 in favor of the Bills. Have the Bills win, the Bills cover, and give me a sneaky under on that point total. Super quick one here. The Carolina Panthers on the road in Denver, taking on a Broncos team who were winners last week. They come into this game on the long week, having extra time to prepare. Carolina losers of 4 straight games, tail end of back-to-back road games, and unfortunately, their presumptive starting quarterback had an issue with an MVI earlier, just a day or two ago, I think it was. And they announced earlier today, Bryce Young will be taking over under center again this week in their game against an elite defense. Anybody need to hear anything else? Lottery numbers? Tell your fortune. Denver in a walk. This should not be a super competitive game. Denver's defense, especially with, I think, getting Patrick Surtain back, should have no problem at all handling this Panthers team. Give me one Chuba Hubbard touchdown, and I'll be happy for fantasy purposes. Denver wins this thing in a walk. Broncos beat the Panthers. On the line, the Broncos are laying -10. Which is obviously a huge number and reflective of Vegas's absolute lack of faith in any capability of Bryce Young basically to do anything. And I'm going to go ahead and lay it because Denver has covered 5 times against the spread this season. And again, laying -10 seems tougher than it actually is. Not to say, it's not saying it's easy, but like, teams win games by more than 10 points literally all the time. And this feels like another setup for exactly that to happen. So I'm going to go ahead and lay the -10 here on a well-rested, or a better rested at least, Broncos team. Total in the game set at 41.5 points. This game is going to be predicated on the defense of the Denver Broncos. Give me an under on the 41.5 point total. I'm going to go like 27-10, something like that. Broncos win. Broncos cover the -10 and give me an under on the point total. Next up, division matchup of the AFC West. The Carolina Good Lord. Let's try this again. A division matchup of the AFC West. The Kansas City Chiefs, the only remaining undefeated team in football at 6-0, travel to Las Vegas to take on the Raiders. Did the Panthers move to the CFL? Moon. They wouldn't survive in the CFL either. Kansas City. Tail end of back-to-back road games, but again, they're undefeated for a reason. The Chiefs is still the Chiefs. Raiders, losers of 3 straight games. A lot of that being predicated on a good defense that still gives up a ton of points. Like, they're only giving up over the last 4 games, the Raiders on the defensive side are only giving up about 270 yards a game, which is really good, except for the fact that they're also giving up 26 points. And the points are the ones that matter. So, from an efficiency perspective, they are, over the last 5 games, the single least efficient defense in the entire NFL. On the offensive side, they're not really doing anything all that special either. They're bottom 10 basically across the board. And the Chiefs, they're just kind of starting to fall into that nice, comfy groove of being the Chiefs. And a lot of that has come on the defensive side. Efficiency, total defense, scoring defense. They're top 5 across the board in all 3 of those categories over their last 4 games. The offense is moving the ball, and they just traded for DeAndre Hopkins. Yes, D-Hop is now a member of the Kansas City Chiefs. They pick him up from Tennessee. Yeah, from Tennessee for a 5th round pick that could become a 4th. I believe is what the trade comp was. 5th round pick that could become a 4th. So that's a replacement for Juju, who re-aggravated his hamstring injury, who's probably going to be out at least 2 weeks, could be up to 4. That was kind of what we see with Mike Evans re-aggravating a hamstring. So he could be out long term. They bring in DeAndre Hopkins. The offense gets better. Sunrise, sunset, ladies and gentlemen. The offense just keeps getting better, and things just kind of keep on rolling for Kansas City, even though this Chiefs team does not look the same as previous Chiefs teams. But all they have to look like is a resemblance of the Chiefs to be a really, really good football team. It's exactly what they are. They should walk in this one, even though the game is in Vegas. Give me the Chiefs to get a strong win here in Las Vegas. Also worth mentioning for the Raiders, Aiden O'Connell breaking his hand. I believe he's had surgery on it. I think he's on IR, likely to miss the next 4 games. I think they signed Desmond Ridder off of somebody's practice squad, but I guess they're going to go back to Gardner Minshew. It's just like just this kind of yo-yoing back and forth at the quarterback position. It's not a way to win football games. I can't wait for that Max Crosby trade. Okay. Chiefs win this game in Vegas. Chiefs are going to lay the -10 and cover the -10. They've covered 5 times against the spread this season. And yes, it's 10 points on the road in a division game. But once again, I feel like this line is justified. So let's lay the -10 on Kansas City. Total in the game set at 41.5. Interestingly enough, Chiefs have only hit 2 overs so far this year. I think this is going to look very, very similar to the Denver-Carolina game that we just talked about. I'm going to take like a 28-10, something like that. Chiefs win. Chiefs cover the -10, and I'm going to take an under on that 41.5 point total, even though it's very, very beatable. And the last game we're going to look at before we get to Monday Night Football is the Chicago Bears on the road in Washington taking on the Commanders. Now, this is a marquee football game that I think could get mired by the fact that I don't think one team is going to have their starting rookie quarterback. So, the Chicago Bears, winners of 3 straight, coming into this game off of their bye, so should be well rested, have the extra time to get ready for a game against a Commanders team that has been playing some excellent defense over the last month or so. Very high efficiency. They're only giving up like 293 yards a game or something like that over their last 4 and like 16 points. This defense has been on point for Washington, which has allowed their rookie quarterback to really ball out. I mean, Jaden Daniels is putting up like MVP type numbers as a rookie. Like it's reminiscent of what we saw from CJ Stroud last year, except I think it's even more dynamic this season than CJ Stroud was last season. Their offense is just humming right along. But Jaden Daniels is dealing with a rib injury, and we know it's not a break, But even if it's like a heavy bruise, which is what it seems like it is, he's not practicing. He didn't practice today. They're being very mum about how he feels. But the fact that he's not practicing doesn't exactly bode well. And I think the data here slightly favors Jaden Daniels sitting. Now, that doesn't mean he's definitely going to, but I'm playing it as if Jaden Daniels is not going to play. That's the way I feel that's what I feel is going to happen. I genuinely do not think he plays this week. He might, but I don't feel like he's going to. Given that, I feel like this is a pretty good spot for the Chicago Bears team to really show something against a high-level opponent. I think this is going to be a competitive, fun football game, but I do have to wonder what the offensive upside of the Commanders would be without Jaden Daniels. Because again, I think that's what we're going to see this week. So give me the Chicago Bears in this matchup on the road in Washington to get the win over the Commanders. And it kind of feels like this is the way Vegas is leaning too, because the Bears are actually 2.5-point favorites on the road in Washington right now. So Chicago's covered 4 spreads this year with a buy in there and a push. So they've had a lot of success against the spread. So has Washington. Washington's got 5 spread covers this year, but I like Chicago to win. It's a small price to pay. Let's lay the -2.5 on the Bears. Total in the game set at 43 points. Washington's hit 5 overs so far this season. So a lot of points obviously being put on the board by them, but again, playing it as if they're not going to have their starting quarterback. Let's take an under here, a sneaky under in Chicago, Washington. I'm going to go like a 23-14, something like that. Still give the Commanders a couple of touchdowns. But again, I think this team looks very different without Jaden Daniels under center. So Bears win, Bears cover, and give me an under on that 43-point total. Now, Monday Night Football. The New York Giants on the road in Pittsburgh taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers. These two teams going in exact opposite directions. The Giants, losers of 2 straight, basically a hard fade based on my model. The Steelers, winners of 2 straight, basically an auto take based on my model. Pittsburgh on the offensive and defensive side, super efficient, scoring points, keeping points off the board. Their scoring offense is top 10. Their scoring defense is top 10 over the last month's worth of games. Efficiency is top 5 on both sides. Even the change to Russell Wilson, which I was not a super big fan of, even that change wound up being to their benefit because the offense looked good. The offense looked good with Russ. I still feel like it has more of an upside and will be better over the long term with Justin Fields. But look, Mike Tomlin knows better than I do. I'm never going to sit here and claim that I know better than Mike Tomlin. Clearly, he knows what he's doing. He knew what he was doing there, making the move to Russ. This feels like a game that, like, again, I'm continuing to advocate that the NFL be more aggressive about flexing matchups into prime time. Like, I mean, I would love to have seen them, prior to the possibility of Jaden Daniels not playing. I would have loved to have seen them flex Chicago and Washington into Monday Night Football. Like, that feels like the Monday Night Football matchup. Or moving Dallas and San Fran to Monday Night Football so they can keep their legacy matchup, I guess, and then taking Chicago and Washington and putting them on Sunday night. Something like that. Like, having the Giants in prime time, they're just not a good team. So, like, Pittsburgh is a good team. And I hate to deprive Pittsburgh of a primetime game, but like, the Giants are very much not. In any case, I think Pittsburgh wins this thing fairly comfortably, couple of possessions. So let's take the Steelers at home to get the win over the Giants. On the line here, Pittsburgh is laying -6.5 points as a strong home favorite. I think they cover this number. They've covered 5 times against the spread so far this season. Let's lay the -6.5 on the Steelers. Total in the game set at 36.5 points. The Giants have only hit 1 over so far this year, but that's such a beatable number. Like, it's barely a mid-30. And I do think the Giants do something on the offensive side. So let's take an over here. Over 36.5 points in Pittsburgh, New York. Let's take Steelers 27, Giants 14. Steelers win. Steelers cover the -6.5. Over on the 36.5 point total. There you have it, folks. Those are my picks, and that is the show for week 8 here in the NFL in 2024. That's it for me, Justin, Bridgewater's Finest on YouTube, Blockbuster_guy on Twitter. Thank you so much for taking the time to check out the show, tuning in live, listening to the podcast, listening on demand, however you interact with this show. I appreciate you very, very much. We will see you again for week number 9 coming up in 7 days' time. All right, folks, that is the podcast portion of the show now done. So let's go ahead here for a couple of minutes and we will once again get caught up here in the chat. Let's see. Corey Block, I think a closer game would be with Flacco. This is talking about Houston and Indianapolis. Haven't liked what I've seen from Richardson. Me either. And again, I'm a dynasty manager of Anthony Richardson. I'm just treating him like a rookie project at this point because he's played like 7 games in 2 years. So, but I'm totally with you. I don't love what I've seen from him either. If the Texans stop the deep ball, they'll be good. Pack wrecked their O-line though. Gio, got to run. Gio, thank you so much for tuning in, my friend. Niners don't look so hot, but they usually handle the boys. Oh, it's from Martin. How you doing, Martin? So I'll go San Francisco. Andrew, Jerry Jones needs to cut ties with Mike McCarthy if they lose, but he won't. Yeah, unless they get absolutely embarrassed. I don't see McCarthy getting fired after a game like this. I don't have Dallas's schedule right in front of me, but I wouldn't be shocked if that was something that happened. Like, if there's a game that they really should win, like at home, and they lose in embarrassing fashion, that could be what finally sends Jerry over the edge. San Fran Super Bowl hangover and Dallas being Dallas. Shocked you're going with Dallas. I'm a Houston fan from Dallas, so I have to deal with the delusional Dallas fans daily. Funny story, Corey, and not unless you've been around the channel for a few years, you wouldn't know this. But back a few years ago, when I was doing this as like videos, my video was actually played on a Dallas area radio station. They had a segment. I can't remember what station it was now, but they had a segment where they like found like YouTubers talking about the Dallas game for this week, and they would play them and kind of make fun of them. They played my segment about the Cowboys, and they started it the way they normally started this, because I would then listen to some of the back segments, and they really kind of take the piss out of these guys, and they kind of started taking the piss out of me. And then after about 2 minutes, they were like agreeing with most of what I was saying, and then just being like, who is this guy? I'm going to follow him. Like, and I got like 2 or 3 Twitter followers, or 2 or 3 subscribers, and a bunch of Twitter followers from the Dallas area because they played my show, and they're just like, I agree with what this guy's saying. So it's just, I'll always kind of have a soft spot, weirdly enough, for the Cowboys based on that. Just always a fun. So one of my favorite stories from doing this for years. Let's see. Andrew, Buffalo could get the 702 call, possibly. Half Moon, Dallas 3-0 on the road and 0-3 at home. Interesting. I feel like Seattle are a sleeper team this year. I felt more strongly about that earlier in the season, Andrew. I got to be honest. Return of Bryce Young's another bad decision. It's kind of taken out of their hands. They don't really have anybody else healthy to play quarterback this week. It's just kind of the freak thing that happened with Andy Dalton. Andrew, KC picked up Hopkins, but I still think they have offensive problems with the injuries. It's the defense that'll help them out, but it might hurt them during the playoffs. Yeah, entirely possible. I mean, they've definitely got to get healthy for the postseason, 100%. Not going to love seeing D-Hop in a Chiefs uni. This is from Corey Block. One of my favorite Texans. Kind of wish we spent a fourth on him. Fair enough. Andrew, Washington and Chicago, aka Rookie Quarterback Bowl. Man, I hope. I hope we get to see both of them play. Let's see. The Dallas stats, very interesting, Moon. That's from Martin. Martin also says the NFC North must be this year's AFC North, meaning last year's AFC North. Andrew, Giants are Jekyll and Hyde. You can't tell what team will show up. It shouldn't be a primetime game. I would take Dallas and San Fran. That should be on Monday night. Absolutely. Look out. Carver is coming next week. For those that don't know, Carver is Andrew's evil clown alter ego. So we're going to be looking forward to that. And Corey, I like to see Dallas win too. The fans just think they've punched their ticket for the Super Bowl every year. Dallas fans seem like they think they've punched their ticket to the Super Bowl every week. Based on what I see on Twitter, interesting. It's an interesting culture. I've said for years now they'd be a great team with a different coach. Again, as a Packers team, I've got my trauma when it comes to being a fan of a Mike McCarthy coached team, and I 100% agree. Like I think it's been long enough now that like they're kind of due for a change. And if they, for some reason, if they somehow miss the playoffs this year or have another early playoff, I thought the loss to Green Bay was going to seal it. I really did, because nobody thought Green Bay was winning that game. So I kind of thought that would sort of seal his exit. But if something similar to that happens again this year, there's no justification for keeping him around. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're at the hour and a quarter mark, so I'm going to let you get out of here on this Wednesday evening. Thank you so much for taking the time to stop in and watch the show live, or again, check out the show on VOD or however you get the show. I really, really appreciate it. As always, we will see you again in the same spot next week. Now, I am heading on vacation coming up soon. I'm not going anywhere like last year when I went to Portugal. I'll be out of town for a few days. I don't think it'll impact the recording schedule. If it does, I will let you guys know on Twitter. But I don't think it will. I think we should still be all good to go. Corey, last thing here before we'll get out of here. McCarthy and Jerry are holding the team back. New coach and a new energy and a GM with some sense would do Dallas some good. I 100% agree. All right. We're going to get you out of here, folks. Thank you so much for taking the time to stop in and check out the show. I hope the audio sounded good on the live stream. We'll find that out here shortly, and we will see you again next week. Peace, everybody.